Yeah, thanks, Kurt, and thanks for joining us today. First, I just wanted to, I'd be remiss if I did not tout the success of our student athletes this past year. We finished the year, we're currently at a 3.46 cumulative grade point average, which is the highest in school history. Our football program had its highest quarter ever at a 3.25. Their cumulative GPA is a 3.21. So our student athletes across the board continue to excel academically. On the athletic front, 16 of our 22 teams advanced to the postseason. Our men's rowing program did what they always seem to do and won a national championship, the 21st time in program history. Our women's rowing team claimed our first ever Big Ten championship, sweeping all seven events in the finals. We really had our greatest year in the history of our women's track and field program. Total of 4 individual NCAA champions. It's the most one year in program history. We had 9 individual Big Ten titles. That's both men and the women in that one. But our women's track team finished both 4th nationally in indoor, 4th nationally in outdoor. In the final overall poll, that includes cross country as well, we finished 2nd in the country. So Marisa Powell in that program clearly had its greatest season ever. So from a athletic department standpoint, record year in fundraising, over $70 million this past year. We renewed our agreement with Learfield, a 12-year agreement with essentially doubles our annual dollars that come from our corporate sponsorship partner. So we're pleased to extend that partnership with them. And with that, I can pause and take some questions.
Pat, with the announcement of the House settlement,
Yeah.
Rev Share is now a part of the equation. How does it impact the budget? Is there still a rainy day fund? Is there still a surplus? Are you getting assistance from Upper Campus? Can you talk a little bit about all the financing?
So we've had roughly a year to start preparing for this. We've been working with our president, our provost, our campus CFO, as we knew right away. Being in the Big Ten, being the University of Washington, adding $20.5 million in additional expenses, essentially what revenue share is an optional for us. So we've gone through the exercises of reshaping our budget, cost containment. We've been very focused on increasing all of our revenue streams. That's why the MMR deal is so important. That's why ticket sales are so important. So it's been a pathway to get here. But as we go forward, we've always looked at revenue share as really the most appropriate step in our industry. We do believe that we're well positioned in Seattle because in our new environment, real name, image, and likeness opportunities do not count against the cap. We believe that we're well positioned in this new environment to maximize our environment here. So there's a lot that's going to go into how we look going forward. There's still rules that still have to be announced relative to shaping, portal, date for signing day, all that stuff still have to be announced coming up. But where we sit today, it's been a group effort to get us to where we're at.
Running at a profit deficit, breaking even, where you at?
We're going to operate we've worked. We've pieced together a budget. We're an entity that needs some assistance. It's been well documented. We need assistance with, specifically we focus on what our stadium debt is. We're at half a share from the Big Ten, so that also that also creates different challenges, different opportunities. So it's a continual work hand in hand with campus to manage our budget together. We all recognize that where we're headed down the road in the Big Ten, whenever we get to a full share, it'll be a very different place for University of Washington. It's just the 4 or 5 years in between is where we have to work together and manage.
Have you made decisions yet about how you're going to divide the $20.5 million among the sports teams?
Yeah, the teams that we're going to focus on primarily for revenue share are football, men's basketball, women's basketball, softball, and volleyball. So, and then what happens between all that is just, we'll keep that proprietary. We got some strategic decisions that we'll continue to make about, what gets allocated where.
Do you fair to assume it'll be in line with kind of how the rest of the Big Ten handles it, at least for football?
Yeah, but I would say this: every school is nuanced. Every school focuses on, has sports that they have a different history with. So we'll our focus is really on. Obviously football generates majority of the dollars relative to our television revenue share, but we're going to make sure that we're going to be most strategic about how we operate. And it's helpful, we have head coaches that are all built and wired the same way, where we know and believe in this next environment. Teams that operate with more strategy, teams that operate smarter, should be the teams that win the day. In the environment we just left, it seemed to be the teams that spent the most money would win the day. So our belief in this new environment, we just have to operate with a higher level of strategy.
You've got a full year now
Yeah.
in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
And when everybody
Yeah.
thinks, when people think about travel, they just think about the football team. But with all the Olympic sports and all the travel, just with all these other teams, tell me what that was like. And have you got your arm around it? Is there anything that can be done to?
Yeah, so let me throw it out there. It is rigorous, and I see the challenges. The irony, though, is when you talk to our student athletes, when they do their year-end interviews with their sport administrators, they've all embraced it. And they've looked at it as opportunities to go see new cities, new campuses. Our coach has done a really good job of, those that are on road trips, trying to learn a little bit of local history or local restaurants or things that kind of just add to the, to the learning part of it. So it's unique. I mean, where I sit, I can see where there's no, I think what our chief medical officer for the Big Ten, I've worked with him for a long time, reminds me there's no magic formula to beat lack of sleep in terms of recovery. You need it. So it's something that I think we're all conscientious of. I think down the road, where this ends up, I don't know if a lot of these sports, I'm in the belief a lot of these sports don't need to travel like they do, but like I said, the irony is our athletes, when you talk to them, they've embraced it.
And just to follow up on that with travel, future football schedule. I know that you schedule those in advance, and
Yeah.
your schedule's changed with, the Big Ten, of course.
Yeah.
But just, is there anything changed on that? Specifically, I'm looking at that Tennessee date, home and home.
Yeah, we're a little bit on a hold right now because we got to see how the CFP expansion does or doesn't happen. Because we have to schedule strategically to put ourselves in the best position to get to the college football playoff. So where expansion ends up, or what the format is specifically, will dictate what our formula is or principles are relative to scheduling. So we're going to be in a temporary hold and trying to add games, and then once we get some clarity on what the CFP format is, then that'll dictate what we look like in terms of a schedule.
Pat, you mentioned getting a full share in 2030. How confident are you that UW will get a full share, considering there's been discussions about brand models as opposed to equal share models?
Well, I would say it's nuanced. Whatever the defined full share is, I'm confident we'll get it. Now, will uneven revenue sharing be a part of the equation in the Big Ten by then? Probably. That's what our environment's leaning toward. There are a lot of lessons learned with what happened in the last chapter of the Pac-12. But I feel very confident that we are our brand, the value we've added to the Big Ten, the DMA of our city here in Seattle, and this whole Pacific Northwest, the totality of what the University of Washington brings to the Big Ten is significant. Our performance, at least in recent history, has matched that. Our goals are to continue to do that on all sports. But what uneven revenue sharing may look like, I don't know. But whatever a full share is, we'll be there.
Hey Pat, the rowing coaches were concerned about the future of the program after the House settlement. What can you say about those two programs and the rest of the non-revenue Olympic sports?
Well, I guess I look at it from a different lens. I believe that the House settlement, provided we can operate out of this settlement, does give us a better chance to support our 22 programs. An unregulated environment was unmanageable. We want, the University of Washington believes that if there's rules, regulations, we'll operate better in it, specifically to how we fund our athletic program. It's not healthy for our industry to have third parties insert themselves and really create this free agent frenzy that is unsustainable. That it's no secret we have to be competitive in football. If there's no regulations relative to roster management in and around football, that creates problems for most schools. I think there's only, I did a mental count, there's probably less than 6 or 7 schools that can operate in a cap-free environment, but the rest of us, will operate with that cap. It allows us to start budgeting again. It allows us to have significant conversations with our most loyal donors about how they can support us philanthropically. But I'm of the belief this gives us a chance to sustain those sports.
You
Had
mentioned
you
that.
served a role on the implementation committee. What did that role kind of look like? And you said, I think, that you felt like Washington had a good voice on that. How do you feel like you were able to maybe influence or help put Washington maybe in a better position based on your place in that committee?
Well, I don't know if that put us in a better position, and it's still ongoing. So if anything, it's allowed, it's allowed us to put, to really do a deep dive in how we've planned. So, we're able to, like anybody, like we don't really know what our, other Big Ten institutions or peer institutions, how they've planned for the House settlement, but we've put a lot of time and staff. I'm very proud of the level of expertise we have in our team. So I think if anything, it's allowed us to just kind of had a, just a little bit of an inside pitch on what this thing's supposed to look like, although that's meaningless now because everybody, because the settlement got approved. If anything, being one of the 2 Big Ten ADs on this committee, I understand and accept the responsibility. There's still a lot of work that needs to get done. We still have to get a calendar put together that allows us sustainability. The portal and where that's at is a significant piece on that. I hope our industry can get to the right place on all these things, and we'll see if we can do it.
You mentioned the emphasis on real NIL. What makes you confident that those opportunities will be so robust going forward relative to what they were since NIL became a thing in 2021?
Well, keep in mind what NIL was pre-House settlement is pay for play. It's fraudulent NIL. When I had to testify in Congress about NIL, and the numbers at that time that I looked at that were given to me was, if you were to look at who is monetizing name, image, and likeness that were not athletes on social media, I think the number was like 80% were women. But in college sports, it all went to essentially 2 sports because it was about pay for play. So what the House settlement allows is we can now compensate our athletes directly. This NIL Go system that has been designed and is operated by Deloitte really puts frames. We'll one assess if there's a valid business purpose for the name, image, the endorsement opportunity. 2, there has to be an exchange of goods and services, and 3, it's got to fit in with a range of compensation. So, and if it doesn't get approved, then there's steps to cure that. But in this next environment, it's the NIL piece should be legitimate name, image, and likeness opportunities for our student athletes, and the revenue share is supposed to get us out of the pay for play and where we're at.
Can you update us on the indoor practice facility for basketball? Any other facility updates, any changes to Husky Stadium for the upcoming season?
Well, basketball, I believe, should be open sometime this fall. I think it's definitely on schedule. It's a $60 million project. I've walked through it one time. So it's there's so much pressure on our building relative to, the sports world has changed, where, the types of basketball players we have on both our men's and women's teams, they're gym rats. I could walk in here on a Monday morning at 7:30 and see both our men and women shooting on their own, just to get shots up. So I think the work that it takes to compete at the highest level, we've recruited young people that embrace that. So that facility is more critical than it's ever been because of you guys I don't know if we tried parking here, but with graduation here, that building's essentially shut down this week. So it's a good one. We opened the Don James Center. That was a big piece of the renovation of the Don James and making that really our student athlete meal area. That's been very helpful and beneficial to all of our student athletes. Those are probably the 2 big things. That's probably the biggest facility project this past year, and then opening basketball will be the big one next year.
Decisions on roster limits. Obviously, the settlement allows you guys to add spots or to add scholarships anyway. Are there any programs that'll that'll have more scholarships available, or others that'll have fewer?
Year one, we've kind of put a, we've put a whole, because the budget, getting our budget to a finish line was critical. Obviously, we're positioned uniquely because of the assistance we need to have from campus. On the go forward, as we look to increase our revenue streams, we'll look for opportunities to add scholarships in specific sports. Those conversations, we'll have a plan for that once we, as our revenue streams change over time. But currently, we'll you have no choice. You have to adopt what the roster caps are, and then we'll work with the scholarship numbers we have right now.
With most, the transition from scholarships to roster spots and revenue share, what have you kind of heard about, or how Title IX impacts this kind of stuff?
Well, Title IX is, it's a federal law, so, we still have to be conscientious of following law. Nothing's changed.
Does the revenue sharing with other schools kind of deciding how much is going to women's basketball, men's basketball, does it seem, I know there's already like a lawsuit out more about the parent pay, on what female student athletes are getting.
Yeah.
But in terms of Title IX, is that more like education opportunity than it is athletic money that they could be receiving? Like, it seems murky.
So, as I understand it, and I'm not a lawyer, but talking with our attorneys is that you bring up the appropriate term. If it's tied to academics, it's one thing, but these are revenues. In our league, I think over 95% of our revenues are garnered from our football contract and football ticket sales. So I think there's a lot of implications on how these dollars get allocated, but from as we understand it, like I said, we will follow. Like at our university, we don't have the option of not following Title IX. So we've conferred with our attorneys what our strategy is, and we go forward.
And I just wanted to confirm, you were talking about feeling good about this new House settlement, especially with those all 22 programs. At this point, you don't anticipate any programs being cut?
No, those discussions have not happened on our campus.
Has there been any discussion in terms of reduction of benefits or anything like that for certain programs?
We've had to resize. The reality of heading into this, and I think I've spoke on this, in this environment, you are going to have a handful of student athletes here and get more than others. The ones that are specific getting rev share. We also had to do some cost containment, so we had to look to find some efficiencies in our department. But as we go forward, this is really just puts a little bit, well, there's always pressure on what our revenue streams are, but that's why I have this emphasis on finding new revenue. Ticket sales, men's basketball obviously is a huge opportunity for ticket sales. Women's basketball is an opportunity for ticket sales. We just got to be conscientious of finding new dollars for us.
You mentioned the budget for 2026 got approved, another loan from the Big Ten, another cap loan. How would you describe the health of the athletic department entering 2026 fiscal year?
I think appreciative of everyone's willingness to support this endeavor. There are, we believe in the benefits of athletics. We believe in the value we add to this institution. These are complicated times in higher ed. There's complicated times in our state, but to have, and it's very nuanced. So, we're living year to year on some of these asks that we've had on campus. These are not easy decisions for anyone on campus. We recognize there's a lot of consternation on campus, just because of what's going on in and around higher ed. But the reality for us is, our budget was approved. We'll go forward.
There's so many uncertainties out there right now.
Yeah.
Just between now and the end of the year, what are you hoping are some things that may get resolved, or some things that we may want to keep an eye on between now and the end of the year?
Big, like college athletics or University of Washington? I think the most important thing, and I honestly think it has to be done before July 1, is we have to figure out this football calendar, because we have to figure out this transfer portal. Because we are in a brand new environment. Our revenue share year, just by virtue of how Judge Wilkin approved this settlement, is July 1 to June 30th. We have set and I'll just use football as an example. I would say one thing. In the settlement, the criteria to be eligible to receive settlement-related benefits, which means revenue share, are two things: academic eligibility and achieving the progress toward degree metric. So after a freshman year, you have to have a certain number of credits, sophomore year, a certain number of credits, junior year. So it doesn't take an academic, or I don't have to live on upper campus to tell you, the more times you transfer, the less credits will transfer with you, and you're more likely to take credits with you if you can finish 3 quarters or 2 semesters on the same campus. So there is an academic rationale on why we need to push the portal back. There's also a practical rationale. To have a sport not complete its current year, to have player movement before a champion is crowned, does a disservice to the player and to the sport. It is mind-boggling to me that we would have a portal open and put young people in the position like what happened to the young man at Penn State who, the backup quarterback, it's not his fault he went into the portal. The environment forced him to go into the portal as Penn State was competing in the playoffs. So we need to look at this. The reality for us is we now have to operate where we're calculating and forecasting what our cap spend is going to be for a year, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. My assumption is we're going to have a rolling signing day, because you can't have this environment anymore where on the first Wednesday in December or the second Wednesday in December that you have 5 hats on a table and one kid picks a hat and a school is either surprised that they picked that hat because there's contractual obligations to that, or 4 schools have dead cap money. Negotiations are happening in real time for the prospective student athletes benefit. They need to be able to lock in a number, and for the campus's benefit, they need to lock in whatever the number is. So you put all these things in for us, for the benefit of college football. We need continuity. We need integrity in what the year is. So we need to give our young people the best chance to earn their degrees. So that's why this April portal, in my opinion, is so significant to put us there, because it clears out, our roster building, at least at Washington, but my assumption is going to be nationally, is you got to focus on retention of your current team. You got to focus on high school recruiting, and then you focus on the portal. No different than in an NFL program. You focus on who you're going to re-sign, you focus on who you're going to draft, and then you go into the free agent world and you supplement. So there's this calendar that has to be put together with football for the overall health of the sport that I do hope we can get there, but I don't know, I'm concerned that we can't.
Especially as it relates to donor collectives raising money and paying athletes and NIL governing.
And theoretically, the donor collective should go away based on this. There a lot of them are pivoting to marketing agencies because they need approved NIL opportunities through the SCO system.
What is your confidence level that schools are going to follow those rules?
The confidence level of schools following those rules, I don't know if I could answer that. I don't know how I would assess that, but I do have confidence that the system is going to, if you put fraud in the system, it's going to get caught, and then where enforcement ends up is really the most critical piece. There's a reason why this new entity has been formed. There's a reason why this has been taken out of the NCAA. The settlement allows us to have enforcement relative to rules that can circumvent the cap. So now we have a court ruling or a court-approved settlement that allows enforcement of rules. Arbitration is a part of this. The NCAA, it's been well documented, had no subpoena power. In this, if something ends up in arbitration, discovery is a part of it. You have to disclose documentation. So there are, and we're all signing up for this. So we've all agreed upon to these, it's the unique environment. Schools in the major conferences have all agreed to the terms of the settlement. We're all taking another step and agreeing to these new rules of the new enforcement model, how governance will happen, and what the new rules are. But the model will work. How many people are willing to test it? I think that's a good question, because it's a huge culture shift. I mean, we're going from no rules for our coaches to rules again, and that's going to be interesting to see how the environment adapts to that.
You mentioned third-party donor collectives going away. How's the transition been from Montlake Futures to Dogs Unlimited for you guys?
Well, it's not a transition from Montlake to Dogs Unleashed. Montlake, to their credit, is they're great partners. They're willing to evolve with us as our environment evolves. So we're appreciative of all their work and all their support through the years. Dogs Unleashed is really our entry into finding endorsement opportunities for our student athletes. So it's where we feel like we've had a running start to try to find opportunities for all of our student athletes. We have we believe we have a unique blend of young women and young men that have unique followings, that have unique backgrounds, that that we believe that partnering with a company, one locally, I think makes a lot of sense, from the smallest to the biggest. On top of that, I think we also offer a value proposition that a lot of our young people that wear jerseys are the types of young people these companies may want to hire. They get extensive training in team building, leadership development. They work, theoretically, most of them work well with other people. They're highly competitive. So, I mean, I think there's a huge value proposition for all the businesses in the Puget Sound.
Do we know yet how much, what you said, 20.5 million will be obviously divided between, athletic programs?
Yeah.
Do we know how much of a difference there can be with Jed Fish wanting to give his quarterback a certain amount versus a cornerback? Is that something that's kind of still like the NIL world, where you can distribute per most important position?
Well, we'll have to, so to Jed's credit, I don't think for those who cover football, it's no surprise. I mean, he's been exposed to a salary cap environment for a lot of his career. Two, he has spent a lot of time in terms of how he wants to model his roster based on how they recruit, how they play football, with the styles they play on offense and defense. I think it's indicative, hiring, although Ryan Walters is very different from a personality standpoint from Steve Belichick, the core fundamentals of the defense Jed wants to run really was a key part of why he wanted to hire Ryan. So Jed is committed to a certain style on offense and a certain style on defense. How that meshes with the cap, I mean, we've had, NFL people on our campus. We've talked to a lot of quote unquote specialists as we've tried to design that, but those are all things Jed's, I would be shocked if Jed isn't thinking about that 24/7 about how he's going to navigate this cap environment.
In taking a look at the NIL structure that's currently proposed or in place, it sure seems like schools in the major metropolitan areas, Los Angeles, Seattle, say like Texas, have a really big advantage over schools that are, say, like Iowa City.
Yeah,
Just a lot more
college towns,
opportunities. Is there pullback from the schools in the minor media markets towards the schools where there's so many more opportunities for NIL deals in the major cities?
But I'd also say that's the essence of college sports. Everyone has different advantages. So, I mean, I could sit here and argue that, there'll be certain schools have they may be in a smaller market, but the affinity rating is off the charts. So it's, we believe we have a huge share of the market here, but it is a highly competitive market. LA, use LA as an example. LA is a highly competitive market with almost 2 teams of every sport in that league, in that market, plus entertainment. So I think everyone is unique. Every school has its own advantages or disadvantages. This is one that we look as an advantage for us. We also have some other disadvantages. I mean, there are other regions of our league in which high school football participation is higher, where the number of NFL draft picks that come out of those high schools are higher. So there's advantages and disadvantages, but we have felt like from when we started to learn more about what the new NIL environment was going to be, we knew right away that this is something we needed to lean into because it should give us an advantage at Washington.
There's been reports of a membership agreement circulating among power conference schools where you essentially agree that it supersedes, that the terms of the settlement supersede state laws, and that you agree not to challenge a decision by the College Sports Commission in court. Is that something you've looked at and plan to sign? Where folks are at with that?
Well, I think it's the oddity. We've already all agreed to the terms of the settlement. So this is one of those, like Washington will sign it. I've looked at it. I think our GC is going through it right now. But I think for us, we there's a little bit of soul searching we all have to do in college sports. And if we want to do what's best for young people, for this environment, I am one who is firmly in the camp. The last environment we were in, it was unsustainable, was not healthy for college sports, was the unhealthiest for the young people that participate in it. We're a school that believes in the experience of being at Washington for 4 years and earning a degree here is transformative and sets you forth for the rest of your life. You know, this bouncing around from school to school, I don't know where the health in that is anymore. So this participant agreement, membership agreement, is it's just another step in trying to do what's best for college sports. And if you're for Washington, it's not that one, we have to just make sure it works with all the legalese works with us. But the reality is yeah, we're going to sign up for an environment that holds ourselves that in which there's accountability. We want accountability. Washington wants accountability in college sports.
You mentioned earlier you didn't believe that some of those Olympic sports needed to travel as much. I was just kind of curious if we could follow up on that.
Well, I mean, there's a reality, like for us to go to, the Midwest to pick up tennis games. Now, you're also talking about 2 tennis programs that made the NCAAs. So I think there's just some practicalities that we're going to have to take in consideration. Now, there's just been so much going on in college sports that you can only move, there are big boulders that we're all trying to move in college sports right now. That's one of the boulders that has to get moved. Where we travel is really a byproduct of how conference realignment has pushed things, and conference realignment is really dictated by, football and television contracts. So I think there's a better way to do it. I do not want to be on the committee that figures that out, but I think there's a better way to do it, and I think we owe it to our student athletes to go figure that out.
And as far as the full revenue share that is expected with the Big Ten in 2030, there's no incremental changes once you get up to that point, right? Like from 27 or 28, like it's still.
No, we get $1 million more every year, but other than that, it's the full leap at that point. Yeah. And our television deal theoretically, I believe, changes because our NBC and CBS deals are up, so that's what changes as well.
You have an incoming president, Robert J. Jones.
Yeah.
What have your discussions been with him about where you guys are, and how do you feel like that relationship is coming along?
So we're fortunate that he's at Illinois. So I was myself and some of our administrators, Jed, Danny, Tina, didn't make the meetings. We were able to go spend some extra time with him in LA at our spring meetings. I was able to spend some one-on-one time with him. His reputation with the athletic director at Illinois, the coaches at Illinois is exceptional. He clearly values college sports. He's excited for this opportunity. I think, at least for someone who was a part of that process, I'm appreciative of our regents finding someone so experienced. From an athletic department standpoint, he was a part of the presidential committee that approved our entrance into the Big Ten. So he knows what our financial situation is at a half share, more intimately than most. So if there was one person that we could have brought in that from an athletic standpoint, I get it. We're a small piece of this institution, and he was brought here because of what he can do for the entirety of the institution. But we're excited for President Jones to get here and help us achieve all of our goals in athletics.
Any other questions? All right, folks,
All right.
thank you so much.
Thank you.